Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're talking about Citadel.
Mm.
Aaron, I want to talk to you about your experience with the old first person shooter.
All right.
Okay. So it's a well known fact that you and the Chud used to run your own computer networking service. Okay.
No,
So when you
that's
guys,
incorrect, Boat. That
well,
never
yeah,
happened.
remember that hospital hired you guys to connect all their computers?
Nope. Nope. I don't know what you're talking about, Boat. That's all made up.
And the Chud fell asleep and you ended up having to do it by yourself?
No. That was believe it or not, that was the West Virginia Educational Program. That was their offices. It wasn't a hospital. We didn't do any networking because they didn't have networks. And we would install a bunch of computers that had like Windows. I think I had Windows 3.1 on the hard drives. So yeah,
Mm,
no networking. Now the first networking I ever did, and this might jumpstart this conversation because I think I know where you're going. When we first saw Doom, we wanted to play us some Doom at the house, and so I had
right.
roommates in Lexington, and we still
So
had. We
this
were on.
was I mean, what year was this?
Oh, this would have been 95, 96, somewhere in
Okay.
that area.
Okay.
We went to a computer show in Ohio. We used to go to this computer show up in Dayton every year, and we picked up network cards. So we all got because no one had those, no one
Mm,
needed them, and we got network cards. We took them home, and then Wes wired us up, and we had network for Doom, and we played Doom a lot. And eventually, I started playing Doom with my buddy. You could actually dial in and play. And so yes, so you could play it on if you had a quick enough dial-up modem, you could play Doom. So we'd play all night long. And the funny thing is, on most of the Doom maps, they were so huge we would never hardly see each other. And
what
then
were
the
you
second
doing?
you
Just
saw
kind of
somebody,
hanging
well,
around?
you just wander around, or sometimes if you can't, a lot of guys like to camp and do sniper. But I mean, you
What
could
if
just sit there
everybody's
forever.
camping at once? That's the problem.
You ever been hunting like in real
Yeah.
life?
Oh yeah.
You know what? It's time for the deer hunt, right? So
Yep.
let's go get a good spot. And then you sit there like a geek in the
Yep.
cold, and you're
Yep.
thinking to yourself, "What am I doing? I don't know." Is the answer.
You're
And
describing my hunting experience to a T.
yeah,
That's
and
the,
so that's what Doom was like back then. You were just sitting there. At least you were warm. You were in your underpants. You were having some popcorn and a Mountain Dew. I mean, so and I'd be watching TV, but I'd sit there forever waiting for somebody to come by.
Now, when you
But
were at the Long John Silver's, did you ever land up there?
no, no. That LAN party stuff, like no one was doing it back then. It was too
Mm,
hard,
yeah.
to do. That really didn't catch on until like, I mean, I can't tell you I'm sure geeks had LAN parties in the mid '90s, maybe earlier, but I mean, the first time I ever went to somebody's place that was having like a LAN get together, I mean, it was like the late '90s, I think, and
Mm,
by the time we got cable internet in the I'd say 97, 98, something like that. So that was pretty cool. Then you could do a lot more with that than you could without it. But I mean, just a local area network, it was a hassle. You ever put one of those things together? It's a pain, especially if you're
mm.
trying to like run under DOS,
I've
for
never done that
example.
before. The whole experience that people had when they would take their computer tower and their computer monitor and they would, lash it to their bicycle and go across town or throw it in the back of their car. That just seems like a huge amount of effort.
Well, first of all, you're not lashing a computer monitor from the '90s on your bike unless you're right. I don't know what you'd be. That would be dangerous act because the monitors weigh like 8 million pounds. But I mean, I very rarely would pick my computer up and take it somewhere. The Chud used to do that all the time. And I've seen him carry that CRT up my back stairs. I lived at Huntington many times, and that huge computer of his. It was always funny because I wasn't helping him.
Did he
I
bring
wasn't
his
helping him.
control panel made out of the log too? Was that
Everything.
part of the ensemble?
This is Chad, so everything had to come. Mouse pad, everything. It was all there. He had everything there. But even then, we didn't hardly ever play two-player games. Not like we didn't hook up. It
Well,
was just we just
okay.
played one
I
or
mean, I'm not
two-player
going to
games.
delve into your private life.
Well, listen, I would have jumped off a cliff by now if that ever happened. I can tell you that right now.
So tell me about sort of the chronology for you in first person shooters. So did it start with Doom or did you get on board earlier with like with the what's that Coco game?
Well, I mean,
Um The
You
what's
got
the the famous FPS on the
Dungeons
Coco?
of Dagroth
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Well, I mean that's more of a RPG type game.
Mm.
When I think the first time I saw something you would call a first person shooter, it was probably like a. I mean, unless you count stuff like Hunt the Wampus or something like that, then it would probably have been like it would have been Wolfenstein 3D. It was probably that was probably the first one I played. I mean, when that came out, I was pretty impressed with it, but not I wasn't super impressed. I mean, when Doom came out, the first time I saw that, I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe it was running on a computer of someone I knew. That was the key because it looked so good. So it was a combination of the smooth scrolling of the game and the movement, plus the fact that it would even run and it looked that good. It was really a mind blowing experience. And I don't know I don't know what game in your lifetime. Can you think of a game that you saw that you just couldn't believe existed on Earth, that it was right in front of you?
I think what the first time that I saw Wolfenstein was similar to that, because I'd never seen. You got to remember too that I didn't have any sort of a middle period in my life. I had the 8088 PCAT with Hercules graphics, and then all of a sudden it was Windows 3.1 on the cusp of 95.
Yeah.
So it was a generational jump, multi-generational jump for me. And when
Were you
Wolfenstein came.
using?
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And when Wolfenstein came out, I remember thinking these are photorealistic graphics. This looks like I'm there. I'm walking around this thing. I'm shooting that guy in the head.
Were you doing much gaming on those PCs, or were you mostly playing your games on consoles at the
I was
time?
100% a console gamer.
Yeah.
But because we had the PC, things would just sort of appear. Like I don't know, I don't even know how I got Wolfenstein the first time. I definitely didn't buy it. I don't and I don't know if you could download, like, what download speeds were like, if you could download the shareware version,
Oh yeah,
or
absolutely.
it could have been a situation where somebody would come over and would visit my parents, and they'd bring a whole bunch of discs with them, almost like the Atari 8-bit days,
Yeah.
and you'd end up with a bunch of just random crap. And so but I remember playing a lot of the like Wolfenstein. I definitely downloaded Duke Nukem. So I guess I was downloading stuff on that computer. I guess you could. The download speeds were enough where you could download a game like that. That's probably
Yeah.
why.
And that's really how they were distributed. The demos were anyway.
Hmm.
It's just that if you had an XT with Hercules graphics on it, monochrome graphics, that's you're coming up. You just happen to show up right at the when it was getting turning over, because you
Hmm.
had to be toward the end of that, of that cycle.
Well, I
Or your
was
parents.
always, I was always 10 to 15 years behind the rest of the
Yeah.
world in terms of the
Yeah.
tech that I was using. It
So
was
you
just,
knew it existed.
yeah, yeah, I knew. But the thing is, like, it seemed like a lot of my friends that also had computers had the same kind of computers. Like, none of my friends had cutting edge gaming PCs until I was in high school. And by
Yeah.
cutting edge gaming PC, I just mean like color graphics PC. I had other friends that had AT or XT machines, and we would swap games, like all the old game tech, like Wheel of Fortune and Family Feud, all those games we all played. I always just viewed PCs as being this lesser form of gaming, because I had no idea, of course, about the Amiga or the ST or anything like that. To me, it was just like PC gaming sucked until Windows 95, and then it got rad. And so, like, really, the first time that I saw a game that I was really impressed with on the PC was when I saw like Warcraft 3 or like StarCraft or something like that. And I mean, we're talking about well into the 90s when those came out. So my outlook on things is just so much different than a lot of other people.
It is. It's like we're total opposites, because I always thought consoles were like for goose, and the
Sure.
PCs where
Yeah.
the studs went. But
Yeah.
although when I saw the original Super Mario on the NES, I will say I was like, oh, okay, now we got something here. This looks awesome.
Hmm.
So there's always a tipping point or a crossover, whatever you want to call it. But it's funny because you know me, I'm easily impressed by things. And so I can go through my back catalog of memories and think about the games that I was like, I can't believe it. And Doom was absolutely one of those games. But for whatever reason, uh, uh, Wolfenstein 3D wasn't one of them. So what I'd seen something that was close enough to Wolfenstein where it didn't impress me that much, but Doom impressed me big time.
Now, did you continue? Because I think once you got done with Doom, what was the next sort of big first person shooter? Was it like Unreal, or like how does the chronology go
For
past
me,
Doom?
well, I mean, my chronology. Here's the thing: once I saw Doom,
Hmm.
everything else I saw was a derivative of Doom in my mind because that's the way we used to think back then. And which was fine. Like I really got into Rise of the Triad, which is sort of a Doom type clone.
Hmm.
But there were tons of these things. There was Rise of the Triad and Blood and Heretic and Redneck Rampage and all this stuff. There was a ton of those things that came out. Sometimes you're a ninja, sometimes you're another merc, sometimes you're whatever. And then there's all kinds of mods that came out for them, so you could fiddle around with a while. But I mean, they're really until Quake came out, where it gave you the ability to like more freedom of movement and freedom to look around and stuff. That was probably the next big one. But even I
Hmm.
didn't get into Quake that much because I thought it was too hard. Dude, I was
Yeah.
better at Doom.
Yeah.
So I'm not the biggest first person shooter fan. But I mean, everyone took their turn back in those days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Aaron, speaking about taking your turn, let's talk about Citadel.
Pretty good tune there in Citadel, Bode. So this is a really quite a fascinating game, in my opinion. But just because of how it came about and stuff, I don't think I'd never heard of this one. Had you ever heard of it when we
No,
tipped
I
into it?
hadn't. I haven't come across this one reading magazine reviews or whatever.
Yeah. So just some of the statistics here before we get too deep into the woods. Citadel, or as it's known in parts of Europe, Citadelia, was released for the Amiga in '95. It was developed by Arrakis Software and another place that was originally called VD. It's funny, I read a magazine article where they called it the unfortunately named VD, but the
Yeah.
VD stood for Virtual Design.
Mm.
But yeah, I would stick with Virtual Design.
Hmm.
And that's all. This is the only thing that any of these crew did. The publisher was Black Legend. They, believe it or not, but we've covered something from Black Legend. Do you remember Statistics? That
No.
weird. It's that game that had like the teeter totter puzzle Tetris type game.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah,
called Statistics.
yeah, or Statics. Excuse me,
Oh,
Statics.
okay.
I misread it.
Okay. Okay.
They also did Fat Man, Wheel Spin, and the Tactical Manager games, among others. They had a few titles in their portfolio. This was a design team of kids that were still in school. It was the design was. I'm going to try to get through these. These are all Polish folks. Paul Matsus, Artur Badowski, Jacob Bodowski, Jan Rosinski, Artur Apala, and Marcin Stangl. And these folks were the ones that worked on it. So every voice you hear in the game, anytime you see anything or hear anything, these guys are the ones that did it. There was a in-house just from these guys. And it was one of those gimmicks where they're like, hey, I wonder if we could do this. With their goal being, can we get a Doom type game to run on Amiga 500? That was their plan, and that's where it started. So if you're ever wondering to yourself, why did this game that released in 1995, that's a first-person shooter, have support the ECS and the OCS, Kickstart 1.3 with a Mega RAM? And then that's why, because that was their goal. They set a goal. They said, okay, what's the number one Amiga that everyone's got? Amiga 500. And so I guess 1 meg was the absolute bottom of the barrel you could get to run this. And we'll talk about how well it runs it here in a moment. This came on 5 floppy disks. The original Citadel, you could not install this on a hard drive. You were just going to be swapping. That's the way it was. So 5 big disks right there. So the game has an incredible opening. Did you sit through this thing, Boat?
It was very, it reminded me of our favorite open with the "Let's get it on" guy.
I like that. There's a part where this dude hits this huge button. I was like, man, I'm gonna put that in the opening. He's got this big hat on. Yeah,
You need to add that to the disaster stream
yeah.
opening. That's what starts it. The guy hitting the big button.
Believe it or not, did you look through the manual on this? I'm guessing you
Yeah,
probably did.
yeah.
Did you read? Do you recall the opening? What the story was behind this? I
Yeah,
mean,
so
they
the
say
Citadel
it.
was essentially like I think was it a prison or a military base? Some
Yeah,
sort of
they had
people.
prisoners digging on it, but
Right,
that it was
right.
not a prison per
And it's your
se.
classic story of, we've lost communication with the base. We think something might have gone down. Why don't you go check it out?
Yeah, it was 2305. And so they send the special landing force to establish contact and find out what happened. So they send in a modern operational spaceship of the destroyer class, christened the X-16, with a crew of over 950.
Mm.
And so you and your partner are the only ones alive. And then when you land, he dies.
Yeah,
So
yeah. This
basically,
is not
you're
unlike we
boned.
played it. We played another game that was like this too. That was it was a French game. And you crash land on the planet, and the first thing you see is your partner laying there dead. It was it was almost like a point and click adventure game.
Yeah. So your task after this intro, and I will say, I guess before we get too far in, let's talk about how the intro mode. I mean, you've got little movies in here and animations, and this is very much in the style of a Psygnosis opening. What did you think about the look of this? The sound effects have got radio chatter and crap going
I mean,
on.
this is truly one of the better, if not one of the best, pre-rendered openings that I've ever seen. The fact that these guys were doing this while they were in high school is unbelievable, or in school of any kind, university, high school, whatever. I thought it was great. I was super, super impressed with the open.
Yeah, they were all teenage school students. It doesn't say which school, but they were teenagers when they made it.
Yeah. I
Parts
mean,
of this have a
if I were these guys, I would say screw game design. I would farm myself out as, hey, we'll make this awesome, this awesome intro for your game.
yeah.
Send these guys to Psygnosis.
Get this, this game, the development of this game, according to the fellows, took a year,
Okay.
and it was slowed down because they were in classes, and so they they quote Artur, who says when he was watching, he goes, after Citadel was finished, he was watching TV, and he saw a thing on TV about electronic arts and a team that was putting together this game in Paris, and he said the game took them a year with 300 people, and he said, he goes, I thought I'd misheard something. Only then had I realized exactly what we had done.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it
I
gets
love that.
awesome.
Yeah. So once you are planet side, then the game truly begins. Now I want to get into the options that you've got here. So when we tell you this is a first-person shooter on the Amiga, they're obviously, that comes with certain connotations and obvious facts. The Amiga shouldn't run these too hard, and it's running Amiga 500 for crazy. And so they give you a goodly amount of options, including obviously the difficulty, but stuff like the screen size, the details. You can turn floor textures on and off and ceiling textures. So they knew this was going to be a bear when they made it. And then one of the things I like is that all throughout the game, with just keystrokes, you can change the sides, the floors. You can change the graphics on the fly. So
Yeah.
you can sort of feel it out, which is what I did. This is me playing in this, and you'll see it part of the way through it. I changed the size of the viewing screen, but by default, I believe that what you're looking at here, if you're watching at home, is the 5.
That's the
Yeah.
biggest it gets right there.
Well, actually, if you hit 6, you get a full screen, completely full with no gauges or anything.
I did not know that.
Which
Wow.
you'll see that
Okay.
in here. But you can actually, now here's the hilarious part. Can you run this on an Amiga 500? Yes. It was 1 meg. It will come up and it will allow you to run it. It runs like molasses going uphill in the winter. I mean, it's slower than Christmas. And so what you've got to do is make it postage stamp size at the lowest speed, turn off everything, and then it will sort of kind of work. But I mean, it's virtually unplayable. So they did pull off what they wanted to do, but if you're trying to play this on an Amiga 500 with 1 meg, you're not going to have a good time, in my opinion. On the normal screen, you'll get whatever border you've got set, and then you'll also get the the amount of damage you've taken, a heart monitor, a compass, and what's in your hand, like a little hand box. It'll be a gun. If you depending on what you're holding, it'll be in that box. The amount of ammo you've got, and then beside that, there's a thing that tells you which ID cards that you're possessing. These are the cards you use to get through doors. Aside the other options, which we didn't mention, were a training option that lets you play through the levels like unfettered. You can go through the levels with all the ammo and stuff, so you can sort of try to figure out how to play the game. I went through the first level and did this for a little while just to see how I did this well in. I skipped it immediately like an idiot. I should have played it. Did you try the training at all?
No, God, no.
We're stupid. Why do we do that? I don't know. I just put it on easy and took off. So when this thing hones into view, you're in a disaster zone. Like this is the dungeon level. And I mean the people that got killed, they did not die easily or funly. They're literally hanging everywhere. They're on spikes. They're hanging from the ceiling. Their body parts are thrown hither and yon. Boat, I know you're a big fan of this sort of thing. When this because I mean this is right out of the gate. What did you think of when you first loaded this up and started it up?
That was it. It's a low, long sigh.
What did you? I mean, I know you're not into the aesthetics of the game. This was something that looks like 4 or 5 teenage boys made it while listening to Iron Maiden.
Right.
You know?
I mean, when you play a game, okay, when I play a game, I think about various things. Okay, when I'm enjoying a game, it can be because I really like the controls. I really feel like they're responsive. I really feel like I can do what I want to do in the game. Okay. Or maybe the controls aren't the best, but man, I really like the art style. I really dig, sort of the conceptual style that the team of artists or the artist of the game was putting in. Or thirdly, man, this puts me in an environment that I've always wanted to be in. It's that power fantasy thing we think about all the time, where it's like, I'm Conan. I'm a big muscular killer, and I've got some sexy damsel in distress I'm trying to rescue. This game doesn't do any of that. When I first started playing this game, they deposit you in this tiny room. And when you play a first-person shooter that I'm familiar with, like a Wolfenstein or a Doom or something like that, there's not a whole lot of controls to contend with. You generally move around a stage with the cursor keys, you pick up weapons, and you open doors. They'll either open up as you come to them, you hit the space bar to open the door, or you got to find a key card, which you do by running over it, and then you open up the door with that. In this game, I spent about 15 minutes in the opening room just running into things and dying over and over again, because in this game, you lose health when you run into the wall. So that was my first impression of this game.
But that's not that good.
No.
I will say, so we have to sort of, before I can explain how I played this initially, we got to sort of talk about the controls. So, I use this game for me. I don't know how you played it. I used my controller, and then the keyboard. So I used a physical controller. In fact, I used the same one I always use, my Neo Geo controller, my Mister. This game also, so if you shoot or want to manipulate something, you can use the button on the controller. All right, that's all one button. Then you've got keyboard commands. Now, I'll tell you straight up, when I went through the game, the first playthrough, I didn't pick up any weapons on the first level, so I didn't think I had weapons, because it shows a bare hand, it doesn't show any weapons. So I thought I was unarmed. And so I went through the whole level without shooting because I couldn't shoot, and you can't punch. Well, I didn't realize till later that you have to hit the I believe it's the function keys.
The function keys switch your weapons, yeah.
Yeah, they switch your weapons. So I learned that eventually, and I do it. But at first, I had no idea. And it doesn't tell you like what you have, and you've got several weapons. So once you figure that out, do that right away. Hit F2 or F3, and a weapon will come up. So that's sort of important. The number keys are what set the screen setting. So if you put it on 1, that's the tiniest screen you could have. If you put it on 5, that's the biggest screen that you could have with your gauges. And if you hit 6, then you've got a screen with no gauges, and it's huge. It's as big as it could possibly be. So those are key elements of the game. I'm just going to go ahead and get into some of the things I don't like right now since you mentioned them. This game has a scroll at the bottom of the screen, which I love that, actually. I don't know why more games outside the Amiga didn't use the old scroll. We've seen that several times. It always comes in handy to have the scroll. But this scroll is a jerk. Like, you could tell this game was made by teenage boys. Because if you hit the wall, it'll be like, ow, this sucks. You're dumb. Like, why are you doing that? It badmouths you. And the problem is, you can't see your own character, so you don't necessarily know how close you are to the walls or doors, and you're going to run into them perpetually. I promise you. I don't care who you are. You're going to hit doors and walls over and over. And so you've got to hear the noise and see the little scroll over and over and over and over. I hated it. I hated that. Any game that tells you, ow, you hit the wall, that's an idiot. I mean, that was a poor choice for the game. And this is
well, okay.
This is
I don't have a
worst.
problem necessarily with that, because maybe there's a situation where you'd want to know you're running into the wall. But even me, I'm no Space Marine, but even in my weakened natural state, when I accidentally run into a wall, like when I bump into it, like if I'm in the hallway or whatever, I'm not losing life.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
the fact that they made that a way to lose life in this game, it's like, why make the game that much more frustrating?
Well, I'm just saying, Doom didn't have you run into the walls.
No.
Wolfenstein didn't have you run into the walls. And if you're mimicking those, don't get too cool for school. You don't run in the wall. Dumb. So I hated that. But the system they use for weapons, it provided you could get your hand over to the keyboard, you're okay. There's going to be and there are problems when it's time to use key cards, but we'll get to those in a minute. So the first level of this, like I said, it's a hideous disaster, but you can get through it. I can confirm you can get through it with no weapons, but it's a bloody nightmare. All the dungeon levels are like this. You're going to come across enemies in the game, and the first set of enemies you're going to come across is a thing that hangs off the ceiling and shoots fireballs. And then this guy that's sort of like, you know who the guy looked like to me, Boat? Do you remember that big doofus in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that had the TV in his belly?
Krang. Looks like Krang.
He looked sort of like him. Did you think that too?
Yep, absolutely.
So and he sort of looks like a big baby. When the enemies come at you, I mean, they come right to you. The hanging one will just come kind of like get beside you and just shoot you with fireballs. But the big baby and all the enemies in this game are, they come right up on you. This is another thing I don't like. And again, this is something I can't blame teenagers for some of this stuff, but I just got to call them like I see them. Every enemy in this game comes as close to you as possible, which is not good when you've got a turn radius that takes you, 10 seconds to complete. And so you can't tell where you're being shot. So if you picture this in real life, if I'm Dirty Harry and the bad guy comes running up on me, like up to my side, can you imagine Dirty Harry in a movie slowly rotating in place for 15 seconds while this guy just repeatedly shooting him or punching him? That's the way I felt, like a geek.
Right.
And then by the time you've turned around to attack this guy, he's taken off a good chunk of your life.
Right.
This happened to me over and over.
When you get put into this scenario, your build is a super soldier. If this is your society's super soldiers, you deserve to die, because you suck. This is in no way, like, I can't put myself in the mind of someone who would enjoy this experience, because to me, a first person shooter, okay, you got different levels of first person shooter. Like, Wolfenstein wasn't necessarily a fast moving game. Okay. But the enemies in Wolfenstein weren't necessarily fast moving. You were playing against a bunch of Nazis, and they would come up on you at sort of walking speed, and you would see them across the room. They would slowly advance. Um, that was okay for a game like this. But in this game, like you said, the enemies, they come up on you super quick and they just hound you. They hound you like the little guys in Kung Fu Master. Those little shin guys. They hug
Yeah.
you and they won't let go. And then so that's one side. The other side of it is Doom. So Doom, if you were running it on, well, really sort of any contemporary machine at the time, Doom moved at a fast clip, and that's why I was successful. I wouldn't necessarily call it 60 frames per second or whatever, but it moved faster than this, that's for sure. And so when you were juking and jiving and avoiding fire and firing yourself at the aliens and stuff, you felt like an awesome killer. And in this game, you don't feel that way. You feel like, man, I want to get away from all of this stuff and just sort of survive. I always felt like I was on the run in this game. I never felt like I was on the offensive.
Yeah, you don't feel like the hunter, that's for sure. Now, with some of
Oh,
the
and one
bad
more thing. Awkward Aardvark points out in the chat, bump damage must have been influenced by Dungeon Master. That says a lot right there, because Dungeon Master is one of the worst games on the platform. So I can
Well,
totally see why they would bring that suckiness into this game.
Bo does not speak for me on the Dungeon Master, but now I'm gonna praise the game to a certain degree. We've played some of these like first person shooter attempts on the Amiga,
Right.
and as far as the actual first person shooteriness of it, this is quite. I thought this was well ahead of the majority of what we played. You actually feel like you're walking like in a Wolfenstein sort of type place. Like it actually feels like things are scrolling like they would in a first person shooter. Like as you go to different levels, they completely change the graphics. The monsters are different. You get there's a good sense of scale. They do I think there is anyway. And I was pleased. I mean, is it the quickest thing I've ever played? No, but on the Mister, which is supposedly simulating a slightly faster A1200, this is ran okay. Now they released a new version of this when the A500 Mini came out with speed tweaks and stuff that's supposed to run quite good. I played the original in the interest of playing the original, and I still thought this for what you're getting, which is a pretty decent graphical display. I thought this was real. I thought they did a good job with the actual engine. What'd you think, Bode?
Well, now I played this on FSUAE because anything that requires a keyboard, I'm going to be sitting at my desk on the emulator. And I wanted to see what would happen. I tested this out on a bunch of different machines. I started with the A1200, and I worked up. And if you play this on an A4000, it definitely runs well. However, the problem is it's the old speed scaling gimmick, where not only does the game runs faster and smoother, but the enemies also run faster and smoother. So I had even less time to react than you do when you're playing at a slower speed. So it was a blessing and a curse. I do agree with you. I mean, compared to some hot garbage like Hired Guns, this game is way better. It moves like a first-person shooter should move, not, step by torturous step. So this is probably on the better end of the scale for first-person shooters, but it's still not an enjoyable experience at all.
I would have. First of all, I also don't condone the bad mouthing of Hired Guns. But with all that said, I actually got into this. The only thing that takes me out of this game, well, there were two things, real things. And by the way, this game also has a map. We should mention that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. The
it's
map works well. You auto map. You hit the M key anytime. That's fantastic. I love that.
I still was lost all the time, and all the time. And so and I will say we've played a lot of these games where everything looks the same. It doesn't.
It's Dungeon Master all over again. Everything looks the same.
They don't. That's not the way this one is. I mean, you can sort of tell your way around, but it's still confusing, and can be difficult to get around. And some stuff I could not figure out. There are, in fact, on the second dungeon level, I could not get past this push button puzzle, and so I was just stuck there. So I was like, I'll load up the third level.
What do you think? What do you think about the inclusion? One thing that Doom and Doom-like games seem to do. Duke Nukem was like this too. They didn't lean too far into the interactive puzzles. They didn't try to mix their Myst with their first person shooter. Do you think that was a good thing, or did you appreciate the sort of, intellectual puzzles on offer here?
Well, as the years ran on, they did do a lot more of that, and which I didn't really. I'm too dumb. I don't. I just want to go kill stuff now. And by the way, if you're watching the video at home, this is me trying to figure out the elaborate key card system here. Did you have any trouble using key cards to unlock these doors? Because I sure as heck did.
I didn't know what I was doing the whole time I played this game, and I had the manual open in front of me. I just
Yeah.
kept dying and turning around and shooting and dying. I mean, I had zero fun playing this game. Now, I can say good things about it, but my fun level was zero.
So you have to hold the correct colored key card at these locks.
Mm-hmm.
I had no end of difficulty. I sat here at this particular lock for a good while trying to figure out how to unlock it. I finally did, and I don't know how. Okay, and that was pretty much the story for all the key cards. I think the book says you hold them, and then but I couldn't find anywhere to put them and so. But eventually, I get through the door. I'm not even sure how I did it.
Why would the computer not just recognize when you're holding the key card? Okay, here's level 1. You pick up the key card. When you approach the door with the key card, the door automatically opens. That's what we call the smart move, okay? But I can take it one level down if you want to get cute, and you have to select the key card with one of the F keys, and then it will open. But that's as low as I go. If you have to go where you actually have to interact with the key card and the lock in some way, that's a step too far in a game where things are constantly trying to kill you.
I wish the manual had been clear. Now, the manual was translated from the original Polish, but they didn't go into enough detail on this particular. There were a couple things I was unsure about as I ran through the game. And by the way, another problem here. Here I am. So, do you see that? I just opened the door.
Yep, okay. And there they are.
Keep in mind, I wasn't looking at the door, and I didn't have the key card in my hand. Okay? But I opened the door, and of course, now you've got no gun in your hand. So you get obliterated instantly, and then the game's over. So there's that. But still, I think I like this game more than you. I'm ready to sort of like
I'm willing to believe that, considering I like this game not at all.
So I've moved ahead. If you're watching at home, this is what the game looks like at full screen with your meters and stuff at the bottom. And we've moved here to the lab. By the way, I don't know, did you get far enough to see the overworld map, Boat?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to skip to it. So you get to pick sort of where you're going in this overworld map after you beat the level. There are a total, I think it's a total of 5 levels, or 6 levels, that not counting like the basic one. And then you've got each of the different worlds or areas have like X amount of levels in them. I don't know how many I had to get that far. So I know for a fact that
well, just by looking at long plays on YouTube, each one of these levels is a labyrinth. You're watching people that know what they're doing, and it's taking them an hour to get through a single level. I don't care who you are. If you've got an hour to spend running into walls and getting shot up and moving through these various things with no discernible reward at the end other than seeing more levels that look the same but slightly different, I mean, what are you doing with your life? I can't find the fun. That's my problem with this game, is I just can't find the fun.
Check out the alien. I mean, he's cool looking, but see what he's right up on
He's just right up on you like a Kung Fu master guy.
So there's a plan in this game, and the plan is you're going to each of these different areas and getting part of the bomb that will blow up the Citadel. So you've got to recover a bomb piece at each area. That's what the game is. We should mention, since this is an FPS, that you get a decent amount of weapons. There's just a regular, like a pistol, a rifle, a machine gun, a flamethrower, a laser blaster, and a rocket launcher. And of course, you'll get the accompanying ammo for those. And then there's also some other stuff like health kits. You can get drunk.
They put beer in the game.
Yeah, because I accidentally hit that, and then it does make you kind of stagger.
I know if I was a space marine getting my head shot off, whenever I'd see a bottle of beer, I'd down that baby.
There's also this thing they call nutrient, which it raises your abilities. I don't know exactly how it works,
It's
and then
science.
yeah, well, good point. I don't know how that works either. But it's like I said, this is the laboratory level, and so it's got a whole different tile set, which is nice, and they look good. I
But
appreciated
again,
that.
once you've seen 30 seconds of this tile set, you're going to spend the next hour looking at the same thing.
Well,
That's
I
the
don't know.
problem.
I mean, if you could whip through the thing, and like, by the way, destructible barrels and stuff. By the way, this is what the game looks like at full screen. So, and this is the speed it ran on the Mister. So if you're, I mean, I think that's not bad.
It's not
I enjoyed
bad.
playing it at this screen. This is the level that drove me bananas. But anyway, to get back to what you said, people have a. Are you a fan of first-person shooters outside of like a normal one? Did you like Doom and stuff
No,
a lot?
I didn't like any of them for the same reasons.
Right.
The thing is though, just like I was talking before with the three-tiered system, I could sort of get over my distaste for the repetitive environment because when I played Doom, I felt like a super soldier killer that was, killing demons and junk. And I felt good about myself. In this game, you've got all of the bad with none of that feeling.
To me, this seems like a decent attempt. I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
actually
sure.
a good attempt.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the running in the stuff and the way the monsters act,
And
I would
also the
absolutely.
controls, the way that you can't just use a space bar for everything like you can in Doom. I didn't appreciate all the keyboard commands in this game.
Right, but I mean, if you could, like for example, if you could, I mean, Doom uses the keyboard as well
But I
for
mean, you
some of
use
that
the space
stuff.
bar for almost everything.
Yeah, but not for switching weapons to the map. So I mean, I'm not gonna hold that against it. I thought they controlled. I thought it was okay. I mean, listen, me and you don't like reaching over the keyboard, so there's that. But I mean, if this game could fix and I have not played the updated version. Maybe they did something. But if it could fix the way the monsters act and the perpetual running into stuff, I would heartily endorse this game. As it stands now, I can give it a partial endorsement because I think it's something that you should look at because it's very impressive looking. And the fact that some kids did this, some teenagers, and by the way, eclipsed many full teams on the Amiga, I think, in terms of what their output. I think it's definitely worth looking at for that. But it's not something you're going to load up all the time, I guess is what I'm saying. By the way, I should mention, how much do you think this game sold for in 95 boat?
29.95.
That's wow. You're close. £29.99.
Oh,
That
almost,
was real
almost.
close, Boat. Wait, did you look at my notes while I wasn't
No,
looking?
no, just a
Did
guess.
we get any Discord action on this?
We did, we did. We'll start things off with Alien Breeder. He says, Citadel for the Amiga, a diamond in the pixelated rough. By 1995, every Amiga developer left standing seemed to have two choices: make a Doom clone or make a Street Fighter II clone. Virtual Design took the former path and delivered Citadel, a first-person shooter set during a prison revolt. In a sea of clunky, sluggish Amiga first-person shooter attempts, Citadel was a surprising standout. Not perfect, but definitely one of the better ones. I first played Citadel when it launched, though played in quotations is generous. On my underpowered Amiga, it barely crawled along, more slideshow than shooter. Fast forward to today, running on an 040 or the A500 MIDI, and Citadel transforms into something much closer to what the developers intended. Smooth, playable, and surprisingly fun. What helps is that Citadel actually gives you objectives. You're not just wandering around gray corridors, wondering what you're doing with your life. I'm looking at you, Alien Breed 3D. There's real structure here. You'll still occasionally get a bit lost. The minimap isn't exactly helpful, but exploration feels more like part of the adventure rather than an exercise in frustration. It's a refreshing change from the usual hope you enjoy being confused design of the era. Visually, Citadel serves up classic chunky mid-90s Amiga graphics. Blocky, gritty, but perfectly serviceable. It won't win beauty contests, but it does a good job of setting the mood. Performance is where it really shines. With an 040 or similar muscle under the hood, it runs smoother than Doom on a stock 386, albeit at a slightly smaller screen size and fuzzier resolution. In comparison to a Doom on a similar setup, it's definitely slower and blockier, but still quite playable. Not everything is rosy, however. There's no in game music, the shooting feels a little clunky, there's no visual of your hand and gun, and the lack of a better map indicators can sometimes make you want to punch a wall. But none of that stopped me from sinking way more time into it than I expected. For an Amiga FPS, Citadel isn't just playable, it's genuinely enjoyable, and that's a rare thing. In the great flood of Doom clones, Citadel manages to be a game worth remembering. It's rough in spots, sure, but it's a blast compared to most of the competition. I give it 810 top bananas out of 1,000. A scrappy
Wow.
little prison break that still holds up today, but makes me wonder what happened at that prison to make it filled with monsters? A great review from Alien Breeder. It's always good to get a different perspective on things, and he certainly has one.
Yes, sir. You guys, is that the only one we got?
Heck no. This is the Amigos, man. We never just have one review. Jeff Hanna comes up next. He says Citadel for the Amiga is witchcraft. No further review as I threw my holy water on my Amiga 3000. Everyone knows the Amiga cannot do Doom style FPS games. This was clearly a demon in disguise. I think I got it. BFB Triple I says Citadel has a cool intro. Dig the music and graphics. But most of what follows makes me ill. I am susceptible to motion sickness from 3D games, so I can't penalize it too much. It's a Doom clone that has somewhat of a cult following because it checks most Doom clone boxes and more or less runs on an Amiga without blowing up homes. If you can stomach the same 5 sound effects for long periods of time, and you have a soft spot for early first-person shooters, this could be your jam, not mine. Check out Citadel Remonstered for a markedly enhanced experience, but an experience that still triggers my nausea. And finally, Pajako6502 writes, I didn't even know about this game. Apparently it came out in 1995? What? I think I might have stuck with my Amiga a little longer if I had this. It's a shame I'm only discovering it now. Playability-wise, it's pretty good. I was able to play with the mouse and keys on my couch with no problems. It's tough, though, and seems to start you on hard mode, and I ran out of ammo on a couple runs before switching over to easy, which is still a little a challenge, but lets you off a little. I also discovered some good humor when you tried to explore all the things which felt like the game wasn't taking itself too seriously. I found navigating a little tricky as everything looks similar, and I only found the exit to level 1 by process of elimination. There was a teleporter as appears in other places, and I didn't realize. I also have to moan about having doors locked behind you. Please don't do that. I hate backtracking in games where exploring is key to completion. Also, where were all the big guns? I kept getting ammo for them, but ended up blasting my way through the first level with just the handgun. Probably just me being experienced with the game, but still. Not nearly enough time this week to really get into Citadel, and I do want to play more. More Wolfenstein than Doom, but a great Amiga game for 1995, 8 out of 10. What do you think about that, Aaron?
Well, I mean, I can't. Those are all pretty on par, I think, with what we've been talking about. It's interesting to look and see how this scored in the magazines of the day. The people in Lemon give this a 7.41, and the people at Lore 76%. Contemporary magazines, I read a couple of these. Amiga Computing gave this a 70%. Amiga Format gave this a 89%. CU Amiga gave it an 85, with the caveat that if you were using an accelerated Amiga, it was an 85. If you weren't, it was a 78. The one gave this an 87, and the overall average was 83. Now, with all that said, I read a couple of the reviews, and there was a lot of, it's if someone else has a shiny, but this is our shiny sort of affair. Like this is that time where they were desperately trying to keep up, I think, and so I think some of these guys looked on this game a little more glow than I think it deserved. I looked on eBay. You're gonna love this one, Bode. So I didn't find any box copies of this under any name, but I did find a fellow who's selling the 5 discs. What's the asking price on 5 discs? Simple, $5,000 US. So if you're interested in picking this up,
it's nice round numbers. It's $1,000 per disc. Take it or leave it.
It's funny. Someone mentioned the music, the lack of the music in this game, and actually that was brought up somewhere where I read it. And the fact of the matter is, they developed music to go into this game, but they could not actually really get the music in it because of the fact that it was made for the Amiga 500, because the memory restraints meant that they couldn't put the music in the actual game. So you can understand that. And So again, this was remastered for the Amiga 500, and amongst the things it fixes are some of the problems we've had. And on the Amiga, on the A500 Mini, it's supposed to run quite well. And and you can play the remastered version anywhere you want. And the guys that made the game have made this a public domain game, so you can go out and play it at your leisure. This did win 2 awards: the 1996 Golden Disc 95 Editor's Choice Award for the Best Polish Game of 1995. And in 96, it won the High Tech 95 Readers Award for the Best Polish Game of 95. So if there's anything we can say about this game, it was absolutely the best damn Polish game of the year 1995 on the Amiga. I think we can all agree with that. Any final thoughts on this one, Boder?
Listen, yeah, it probably seems like I was harsh on this game.
Yes.
I think that if you are a fan of the genre, then you're gonna enjoy this more than I did. There are 2 types of games that I absolutely cannot stand, and one is the tile by tile dungeon crawler, and the other one is the first person shooter. To this day, I don't want to play either of those, and so that colors my opinions. But I can't knock this game for what it attempts, because it did. These guys, they had a vision, they set out, and they accomplished it, and they were school kids. So hats off to the developers, and hats off to Citadel.
And very good, but one more thing I should throw in.
I spent that whole time.
I know it was
setting
beautiful,
you up.
but I've got to say this because I want to further make you feel bad. This game sold well in '95, as well as the Amiga game can, but the publishers took all the money, and from what I've read, the poor high school or college kids made not one dime on this game. They had to sue the developers, and by the time the developers got sued and lost, they had no money left to give. So what are you gonna do? I agree with you. A great effort for some kids. When I was in high school, I could barely do anything. These guys are making first-person shooters on the Amiga. My hat's off to you, boys. Skipping the commercial and going right into the news.
We'll run it after.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Amiga news time.
Whoops.
So, Aaron, we just have a couple stories this week on the old Amiga news. The first one, what is the first story there?
It's an Alien Olympics, Bo.
That's right. Games that weren't. This was posted on our Discord. Games that weren't. This is an ongoing series on the web. Gamesthatweren't.com, an actual website that chronicles, as they say, games that weren't. And this week they're talking about the Alien Olympics. This was supposed to be released on the Amiga and the CD32. 1994 Mindscape, Aaron. This one reminds me of the old James Pond Aquatic Olympics games. It looks like a sort of a race type thing. It says that the game was only 50% complete. It's essentially track and field clones set in space, featuring 8 alien competitors, each with different strengths. And it says that the Amiga version is much closer to finished than the PC edition. And so if this ever gets finished up, we'll play it, Aaron, because we love games.
I love the concept of this game. There was a game out called Purple Saturn Day, and it was sort of a game in space, as I recall. But it was really weird. This looks exactly like what we love. I'm so sad, and the graphics are good too. So it's a shame that no one got this finished. Who said this wouldn't sell? Take those guys out and beat them. This is right up our alley. We'd have bought it. Or at the bare minimum, we'd have pirated it.
Next up, Aaron, it's time for Burger Time. Burger Time is just got its final release. Our long national nightmare is over, and we can play Burger Time in the comfort of our own Amigas, thanks to JOTD and the Scorpion engine, of course.
Beautiful. So this is a This is one that's been brought over with the Scorpion engine as opposed to transcoding.
I don't know. I
It
just
look
made that up.
well. So you don't know? Then I'm gonna
No,
look here
no
and see if
idea.
it's. I bet it's transcoded. I wouldn't be surprised because he does all the transcoding. Yeah. Here we go. 6502 to 68,000 conversion. Amiga graphics conversion and Amiga sound effects. So this is a hybrid, if you will, which he said a few of those too. Listen, Burger Time, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. It cannot be duplicated. Go with the original every single time.
Next up, Aaron, we have this is a new game. You know, everybody loves Agony. People can't stop talking about it. Well, Agony's got an unofficial spiritual sequel, and this is called Anguish. I don't know why you'd want to name your game something you don't want to experience. It's like naming your game like caught my finger in the door jam.
Yeah.
That's no good.
Well, let's have a look at this here before I make a comment.
So this was originally for Amiga Kami's Game Jam, the sequels that weren't. I had to go with this. It's an okay game. You know, it's a lot like Agony, except the bird isn't as pretty. But you know, it's that same sort of horizontally scrolling shooter where you have enemies that appear. You know, it's your standard fare. But hey, who's going to say no to a sequel to Agony?
It actually looks pretty interesting. It looks more playable than Agony.
Agony's sort of a horrible game. Let's be honest.
No, it's
this thing will run on a stock Amiga 1200 or 4000, either one, and it needs a meg or more of fast RAM.
This doesn't look bad at all. I mean,
No.
if I'm honest, I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe the name threw me. But and look at that parallax scrolling.
3-level parallax scrolling.
The
copper-infused
birdemic
backdrops.
flock is in front of the moon. They've been there the entire game. I'm assuming at some point these guys come to get you. They better. But yeah, this looks like if Agony and Alien Breed had a child, or not Alien Breed, but shoot, help me out here.
Apidia?
No, not Apidia. Oh God, my brain's tapioca. I can't remember what I was going to say, but yeah, it looks good.
And this one was developed with the Scorpion engine.
So you're close.
That's right. That's right. And that's going to do it for this week's Amiga News, Aaron. Sort of a slow news week, but I do want to give out a plug for the International Retro Computer Festival. And by that, I mean the International Retro Computer Expo. This is Boatfest 2025 is coming up in 2 short months. We have, it is May 1st, which means we are under the gun, and July 11th through 13th in beautiful downtown Hurricane, West Virginia. You can join me, Amigo Aaron, the Brent, Flack, Rob Flack O'Hara, a cast of thousands will be in attendance for West Virginia's largest retro computing event. We have a good time. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the social event space, a beautiful location right in scenic downtown Hurricane. We plan on having a lot of fun events. There's going to be an auction. There was a big free giveaway table last year. Of course, we're going to have a live recording of Amigos where we celebrate our 10th anniversary on the air. It's going to be a weekend full of fun, full of food, and full of laughs. Aaron, what are you most looking forward to at Boatfest this year?
Well, gosh, there's a lot of stuff I'm anxious to see and do. But I'm looking forward to just like I always say, and it's true. I always enjoy seeing all of the people that show up and what they bring. It's always a great night. Most of the people that come to this I see once a year. And Boatfest is the only time I actually physically interact with them. And so it's nice to see a bunch of your buddies. It's like having a big, huge ultra sleepover with all your pals.
Yeah.
And they bring all their crap. Added bonus. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting to play with all the cool stuff. That'll be a lot of fun. And I'm just looking forward to a nice, fun weekend with my friends playing a bunch of video games, if the truth be told, Bo. It should be a blast.
Yeah, and you can go to ircexpo.net to get full details, including lodging, directions, etc. Tickets for the whole weekend are extremely reasonable. I can't actually remember what the price is, so I'm gonna have to look it up right now.
$30, I believe. Bo.
$30 for the whole week. No, I'm sorry, $40 for the whole weekend.
$40 for the
$40 for the whole weekend. Day passes are available. If you can only come Saturday and Sunday, if you can only come Friday and Saturday, either way, we would love to see you there. And so, yeah, plenty of tickets still left. Again, that's Friday, July 11th through July 13th. Boatfest 2025, aka the International Retro Computer Expo.
Let's hear from one of our sponsors of this fine event.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
All right, Aaron, what do we got coming up on the show next week?
Could it be any better than today's Game Boat, honestly? Let's find out. Well,
Mr. Nuts is up next week, Aaron. So we've gone from a 3D first-person shooter back to the 2D side-scrolling platformer that the Amiga is famous and well known for.
You know, I played some Mr. Nuts on a disaster stream a couple weeks ago on Amiga exclusive. So this is one I've actually played recently. I've got a lot to say about Mr. Nuts.
All right. Well, as always, guys, thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. You get access to full, uncut, unedited episodes where Aaron and I sit around and talk about random crap for half an hour before the show starts. And not only that, you get access to the best Discord server on the internet. Every podcast has a Discord server. Ours has been up and running almost longer than every other. We're one of the first 5 Discord servers that ever existed. And you can take that to the bank. So, I've got nothing else to say, Aaron. I guess you know what? We need to start, kind of giving a little bit of jack to what you've got coming up next on this weekend's endeavors in terms of the other shows on the network. What are you and the Brent recording this weekend?
Well, we're going to be doing ARG Presents on Sunday evening, and this time out we're looking at games that on a computer that doesn't exist technically. So you tune in to find out what that's going to be. And then tomorrow night there may be a disaster stream. I never really know until the mood hits me as to what I'm doing. But if you're into wacky antics, a Friday disaster stream most Fridays around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, your boy will be there ready to rock and roll. Oh, 2 weeks from Saturday, if you're into it, if you're in the Discord, it's Eurovision time.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a full day-long schmoz on Eurovision. We'll be watching it live amongst your peers. In there with all the Europeans, they got skin in the game. The rest of us are just pointing and laughing.
All right, guys. Thanks as always for watching. We'll listen to you next time, and we'll watch you then. Until then, bye-bye. Adios.
Adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.